The great chamber of Luminar Prime buzzed with hundreds of voices. Translators worked overtime as species from across the galaxy argued, clicked, whistled, and hummed their opinions. At the center of it all stood Haiyan Wu, Earth's ambassador, alone at a podium that seemed designed to make him look small. The Velkrans towered over everyone else. Their crystalline bodies caught the light from 1,000 sources, making them look like living sculptures. Elder Vexthan, oldest of them all, raised one massive arm and the chamber fell silent. His voice resonated through the hall, like wind through a canyon. We gathered today to address a problem that has plagued this council for too long: humanity. Haiyan Wu kept his face neutral. He had known this was coming for months. The whispers in corridors, the closed-door meetings, the way other ambassadors avoided eye contact. Still, hearing it spoken aloud felt like a punch to the gut. "They are too aggressive," continued Vexthan. "Too willing to break our laws. Too dangerous to remain among civilized species." A Thresk delegate rose, its multiple limbs gesturing wildly. "Just last cycle, human forces entered the forbidden sectors without authorization. They claim it was a rescue mission, but who knows what they really did there?" Haiyan Wu stepped forward. "We saved 43 lives. Miners trapped when their station lost power. Your people said it would take weeks to mount a proper expedition. Those miners would have been dead." "You violated sacred space," the Thresk shot back. "Space that has been forbidden for good reasons. Reasons your kind refuses to respect." The chamber erupted again. Haiyan Wu tried to speak over the noise. "What about the Korvax plague? When the infection was spreading across 3 systems, who developed the cure? Human scientists worked around the clock while your people debated proper procedures." Vexthan's crystalline hand came down on his podium with a sound like breaking glass. "Enough. We acknowledge humanity's single quotes S. contributions, but the cost of your presence has become too high. You do not follow the protocols that have kept this council functioning for 10,000 years. You question everything. You take risks that endanger us all." "We take risks that save lives," Haiyan Wu said quietly. "That is exactly the problem." Vexthan swept his gaze across the chamber. "Honored delegates, the motion is simple. Should humanity retain its membership in the Galactic Council?" Haiyan Wu watched the vote counter. Red lights began appearing across the board. One after another, species that humanity had helped, had saved, had stood beside voted for expulsion. The Thresk, still bitter about the forbidden sectors. The Morati, who resented human competition in trade. The Quen, who feared human military power. Even some of the younger species voted red, following the lead of their elders. When the count finished, the result was crushing. 372 votes for expulsion. Only 18 against. "The motion passes," Vexthan announced. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. You have 30 standard cycles to remove all personnel, installations, and vessels from council space. This session is adjourned." The chamber emptied quickly. Nobody wanted to face the human delegation. Haiyan Wu stood at his podium, hands gripping its edges, staring at the empty seats. He heard footsteps behind him. Ambassador. It was Taiyang, Earth's military liaison. The man's face was carved from stone, expression unreadable. "We should go. Just a moment. There's nothing left to say here." Haiyan Wu turned to look at him. "They really did it. After everything." Taiyang nodded slowly. "Yes, and now they'll learn what we really did for them." "What do you mean?" "Come on. The president wants to speak with us immediately." As they walked through the corridors of Luminar Prime, Haiyan Wu noticed something. The usual bustle of the station seemed different, quieter. Aliens, who normally rushed about their business, stood in small groups, talking in low voices. Some watched the human delegation pass with expressions that might have been regret. Others looked satisfied. A young Quen approached them, one of the few species that had voted against expulsion. Ambassador Haiyan Wu, I am sorry. My people tried to stop this. I know. Thank you. What will you do now? Haiyan Wu glanced at Tai Yang, who remained silent. We'll go home. Earth will be fine. But what about the Council? What about all the work humans do here? That's not our problem anymore, Tai Yang said flatly. The Council made its choice. They left the Quen standing in the corridor and continued to their ship. Inside, the rest of Earth's delegation waited. Su Min, commander of the human forces stationed on Council defensive platforms. Jin Ho, who oversaw mining operations on a dozen worlds. Dr. Yunji, head of xenobiological research. Ji Wu, her young assistant, who looked like he might cry. It's done then? Su Min asked. Haiyan Wu nodded. 30 cycles to complete withdrawal. That's not much time. We have installations on hundreds of worlds. Personnel scattered across 3 spiral arms. Then we better start immediately. Tai Yang activated the communications console. I'm sending orders now. All human forces begin evacuation procedures. Priority 1. Dr. Yunji frowned. What about our research? We have ongoing projects with dozens of species. Some of that work is critical. Encrypt it. All of it? Use military-grade security. Tai Yang's voice was cold. They voted us out. They can solve their own problems now. But people will die without that research, Ji Wu protested. The Kessler syndrome vaccine we're developing. Is our vaccine? Yunji interrupted quietly. Developed with our resources, our minds, our time. The Council just told us we're not welcome here. Fine, we take our work with us. Haiyan Wu watched his team. These were good people, people who had dedicated their lives to helping others. And now he saw that goodwill turning to something harder, something colder. Get some rest, he told them. Tomorrow we start packing up. We have 30 cycles to remove every trace of humanity from Council space. Let's make sure we do it thoroughly. As the others filed out, Tai Yang remained behind. You think I'm being too harsh. I think you're angry. We all are. I'm being practical. Tai Yang pulled up a star chart. Look at this. These are all the positions where humans serve in critical roles. Defense platforms. Trade route monitoring. Plague response teams. Infrastructure maintenance. The Council has no idea how much of their daily operations depend on us. They'll figure it out. Will they? Tai Hong smiled, but there was no humor in it. I guess we'll see. In 30 cycles, humanity will be gone from Council space. Then they'll learn exactly what they just threw away. Haiyan Wu looked out the viewport at Luminar Prime, the great station that represented everything the Council had built over millennia. Right now, it looked fragile, like something that might crumble if you looked at it wrong. Maybe they will, he said softly. Maybe they will. Jin Ho stood in the control center of mining station Xeris 4 and tried not to think about the years he had spent here. 7 years building this operation from nothing. 7 years turning a worthless rock into one of the most productive mining facilities in the sector. Now he had 10 days to tear it all down. Boss, the locals are asking questions again. His second-in-command, a woman named Min Seo, gestured toward the observation window. Below, crowds of aliens gathered near the main gate. Thrusk, Morati, even a few Velkrans who worked the lower-grade operations. What kind of questions? They want to know if we're really leaving, if we're taking the equipment, if they can buy some of it. Jin Ho laughed bitterly. Buy it? This equipment is worth more than their entire planetary economy. No, we're taking everything. Every drill, every scanner, every piece of tech we brought here. Even the stuff we built into the infrastructure? Especially that. Jin-Ho pulled up a schematic of the station. See these support systems? The Thresk think they're standard Council technology. They're not. We reverse-engineered Council designs and improved them by 40%. Without our modifications, this whole operation will run at maybe 60% efficiency. That'll crash the local economy. Not our problem anymore. Min Seo looked uncomfortable. These people didn't vote to expel us. Most of them are workers, just trying to survive. Then they should talk to their governments. Tell them this is what happens when you kick out the people who actually do the work. Jin-Ho softened slightly. Look, I don't like it either. But Earth was clear. We take everything. No gifts, no charitable donations. The Council wanted us gone, so we're gone. Across the sector on Station Aegis 7, Commander Su-Min faced similar conversations. The station's alien crew watched in confusion as humans systematically removed components from the defense grid. Commander, I don't understand. The Quen shift supervisor, a decent fellow named Kith, studied his datapad. This says you're removing the primary targeting arrays. But those are Council standard components. They're built to Council specifications, Su-Min corrected. But they're human-made. We installed them. We maintain them. They're ours. But without them, the defense grid will have huge blind spots. Then the Council should invest in replacing them. Su-Min didn't look up from her work. We're leaving you with the basic systems. Everything we're contractually obligated to maintain. Contractually? Kith's translator conveyed his distress. Commander, we've worked together for 3 years. I thought we were friends. That made Su-Min pause. She looked at the Quen, seeing genuine hurt in his eyes. Kith, your people voted against expulsion. I know that. But the vote passed anyway. Now Earth has ordered complete withdrawal. I have to follow those orders. So friendship means nothing? Friendship means I'm making sure the basic systems work before I leave. Friendship means I'm not sabotaging anything, even though I'm angry enough to do it. But friendship doesn't mean I can disobey direct orders from my government. She placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. I really am. On Thandros, Dr. Yoonji supervised the shutdown of her research facility. 20 years of work packed into shipping containers or encrypted into databases. Her assistant Ji-Woo looked miserable as they wiped the laboratory computers. This feels wrong, Ji-Woo said. We're scientists. Science should be shared. Science is shared among people who respect scientists. Yoonji moved to the next terminal. The Council just told us we're not good enough to be members. Fine, but they don't get to keep the fruits of our labor. What about the Kessler syndrome vaccine? We're 6 months from completion. Millions of people will have to wait for someone else to finish the work. Or they can hire us as consultants. Yoonji's voice was harder than Ji-Woo had ever heard it. Do you know how many times I've requested more funding for this project? How many times the Council told me it wasn't a priority? Now suddenly it matters because we're leaving. Doctor, please. People will die. Yoonji stopped working and turned to face her assistant. Ji-Woo, do you remember the outbreak on Nesk Prime 5 years ago? Yes, the Korvax plague? Do you remember how many humans died developing the cure? 43 researchers contracted the disease while working without proper safety protocols because the Council said we didn't have time for proper procedures. 11 of them died. Humans, Ji-Woo. Our people gave their lives to save Council species. And now those same species just voted us out. Her eyes were hard. I'm done sacrificing human lives for people who don't appreciate it. The conversation ended there. They finished encrypting the data in silence. Across hundreds of worlds, similar scenes played out. Humans professionally, efficiently, and thoroughly removed themselves from Council space. They fulfilled their legal obligations to the letter, but volunteered nothing extra. When aliens asked for help understanding human-modified systems, they received exactly the documentation required by contract and no more. On the trading hub of Nexus Station, human merchants closed their shops. The local economy had relied on human goods for decades. Now, suddenly, there were no more of the small fusion batteries that powered everything from medical devices to personal vehicles. No more of the compact food synthesizers that could create nutritious meals from basic elements. No more of the translation devices that actually worked reliably. A Marathi merchant approached one of the departing humans. "Surely you could leave us some stock? We can pay." The human smiled politely. "Our contracts are terminated. We have no obligation to continue trade. But we need these products. Then develop them yourselves. Or negotiate with Earth. I'm sure the government would be happy to discuss trade agreements between sovereign powers." The distinction was clear. Humans would no longer operate as subordinate members of the Council's economic system. If the Council wanted human goods, they would have to negotiate as equals dot in the medical stations. The departure hit hardest. Human doctors had staffed emergency wards across the sector. They worked the shifts nobody else wanted, treated the cases nobody else could handle, and did it with a dedication that had become legendary. Now they were leaving Dr. Yoon, who had run the trauma center on Gateway Station for 8 years, packed his equipment while aliens pleaded with him to stay. "You can't go. You're the best surgeon in 3 systems." The Council doesn't seem to think so. The Council is politicians. We're talking about saving lives. Yoon looked at the alien, a Thresk medic who had trained under him. Then talk to your politicians. Tell them what they just did. Tell them they just expelled the people who were holding this sector together. He sealed the last container. "I'm going home. Earth needs good doctors too." As the deadline approached, the streams of human ships leaving Council space grew heavier. Transports loaded with equipment, personnel carriers full of evacuated staff, even military vessels carrying soldiers who had been stationed on defensive platforms. The great exodus was quiet but inexorable. On the final day, Ambassador Hyan Wu made one last walk through Luminar Prime. The station felt different already. Corridors that humans had walked for decades now echoed with their absence. Systems that humans had maintained now showed the first signs of neglect. He passed the Quen who had apologized to him 30 cycles ago. The young alien looked sadder now. "We didn't think it would be like this," the Quen said. "Neither did we," Hyan Wu replied. "But here we are. Will humans ever come back? Maybe, on our terms. If we decide it's worth it." Hyan Wu boarded the last human transport and watched through the viewport as Luminar Prime shrank behind them. Somewhere on that station, the Council was probably already meeting, already discussing how to fill the gaps humanity left behind. Good luck to them, he thought. They're going to need it. 3 months after the last human ship departed Council space, the problems began. On Xeris 4, the mining operation that had produced 40% of the sector's rare metals ground to a halt. The main drilling array, which had worked flawlessly for 7 years, suffered a catastrophic failure. The Thresk engineers stared at the wreckage in confusion. "I don't understand," the chief engineer told his supervisor. "The schematic says this is a standard Council drill. But look at these components. I've never seen anything like them. Can you fix it? I can't even identify half these parts. And look here, the power distribution system. According to Council specifications, this drill should draw 40 units of power. This system only draws 24. How is that possible?" The supervisor contacted the Council Technical Support Office. They sent specifications for standard drilling equipment. When the Thresk engineers tried to install those components, nothing worked. The systems weren't compatible. The humans had modified everything so extensively that standard console technology couldn't integrate with it. Try contacting Earth, the supervisor finally ordered. See if they'll help. The response came 3 days later. A polite message from the United Earth Mining Consortium. They would be happy to provide technical support at standard consulting rates. The fee made the supervisor's eyes bulge. We can't afford this. Then the drill stays broken. Production on Xeris 4 dropped 70% in a month. The economic ripples spread across 3 sectors. Prices for rare metals skyrocketed. Manufacturing slowed. Shipyards couldn't get the materials they needed for construction. But mining was just the first crack in the facade. On the frontier, pirates grew bold. For decades, attacks had been rare in Council space. Everyone assumed it was because the Council fleet maintained order. The truth was different. Commander Sumin had run what she called a quiet program. On Aegis 7, human patrol ships, operating on unpredictable schedules, had monitored shipping routes that didn't officially need monitoring. They had tracked pirate vessels back to their bases. They had fed information to Council fleets about when and where to strike. More importantly, humans had monitored the jump points. They had mapped routes through dead space that pirates used to escape. They had deployed sensor nets in areas the Council deemed too expensive to cover. Now, all of that was gone. The first major attack came without warning. A merchant convoy carrying medical supplies to a Marathi colony was hit in what should have been protected space. 6 ships destroyed. 300 lives lost. The Council fleet responded, but the pirates had vanished through a jump point. It wasn't on any official map. Jump point that human forces had been watching for years. The attacks continued. Shipping companies began demanding military escorts, which the Council fleet couldn't provide. Insurance rates tripled. Trade slowed. On the frontier station where Kith worked, the defense grid went offline during a routine update. The alien crew tried to bring it back up. Nothing worked. Why isn't this working? Kith demanded. We followed the procedure exactly. His second-in-command, a Velcrin, studied the error messages. It's asking for authentication codes we don't have. Human codes, but we have full administrative access. To the basic systems, yes. But these targeting arrays, these are linked to some kind of human verification network. Without connection to that network, they won't come online. Can we bypass it? Not without potentially damaging the entire grid. They tried contacting Earth. The response was polite and unhelpful. The authentication system was a security feature. It could be disabled, but it would require a human technician to physically access the system. Earth would be happy to send someone. For a fee. The fee was astronomical. Meanwhile, on the Thresk homeworld, people were dying. The outbreak started in a small farming community. Kessler syndrome, a disease that had been eradicated decades ago, somehow returned. It spread quickly, killing within days. The Thresk government activated their emergency protocols and sent for the cure. They discovered the cure was encrypted. Dr. Yoonji's team had developed the vaccine years ago. They had stored it in the Council medical database. But when the Thresk tried to access it, they found it locked behind human military-grade encryption. The kind that couldn't be broken. Not in months, not in years. Why would they do this? The Thresk health minister demanded. Because they knew we would need it, his aide said quietly. And they wanted to make sure we had to ask. The minister sent a formal request to Earth. It arrived at Dr. Yoonji's new laboratory, a sprawling facility on the outskirts of Geneva. She read the message while sipping morning coffee. They want the Kessler syndrome cure, she told Ji Woo. Are you going to give it to them? Of course. I'm not a monster. She typed a response. I'm sending them the decryption key, along with an invoice for consulting fees and royalties. Since they want us to share our research, they can pay for it like any other client. Ji Woo read the invoice and whistled. Doctor, this is more than most planets earn in a year. Then they better start negotiating. The price goes up every day. People are dying. In the council chambers on Luminar Prime, representatives gathered for an emergency session. The mood was different from 3 months ago. The confidence had drained away, replaced by growing concern. This is a disaster, a Marathi delegate declared. Our shipping lanes are under constant attack. Our economy is contracting. And now disease outbreaks? The humans modified our infrastructure more than we realized, Vex then admitted. His crystalline form seemed dimmer somehow. They integrated their technology so thoroughly that removing them has caused cascade failures across multiple systems. So what do? We adapt. We rebuild. We prove that the Council doesn't need humanity. But even as Vex then spoke, another report arrived. A transport ship carrying refugees from a disaster zone had broken down in deep space. Its engines had failed. The engines that human technicians had modified to improve efficiency had failed, and nobody knew how to fix them. The ship was drifting. 2,000 souls aboard. Rescue ships were en route, but they would arrive too late. The report mentioned, almost as an aside, that Ambassador Hyen Woo had sent his condolences. He had also noted that human rescue ships, with their faster engines and better equipment, could have reached the stranded transport in time. Could have. If they were still in Council space, the Quinn delegate, one of the few who had voted against expulsion, stood up. How many more have to die before we admit we made a mistake? We made no mistake, Vex then insisted. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, and without them we're dying. Our economy is failing. Our security is collapsing. Our people are suffering from diseases we thought were gone forever. The Quen looked around the chamber. How long before we admit that we needed them more than they needed us? The session ended in chaos. No decisions made. No solutions found. And in space, the transport full of refugees drifted silently, waiting for rescue that would come too late. 15 months after humanity's expulsion, the Kerr attacked. The first strike hit colony worlds on the frontier without warning. 3 planets, home to millions. The Kerr fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapon systems hot, their tactics flawless. They annihilated the local defense platforms in minutes. On Luminar Prime, alarms shrieked through the council chambers. Vex then rushed to the command center with dozens of other representatives. The tactical display showed spreading red markers as more Kerr ships appeared. Where did they come from? Demanded the Marathi defense minister. The Kerr haven't been seen in force for 3 centuries. Intelligence said they were scattered, disorganized. Intelligence was wrong, Vex then said grimly. Or things changed. Admiral Court, a Velkrin military commander, studied the enemy formations. These aren't disorganized raiders. Look at their coordination, their technology. This is a unified military force. How did we miss this? Nobody wanted to answer that question. But everyone in the room knew. For decades, human Black Ops teams had operated in the dark spaces beyond Council borders. They had conducted raids on Kerr shipyards. They had introduced viruses into Kerr communication networks. They had assassinated Kerr warlords who tried to unite the fractured clans. They had done it all quietly, without fanfare, because the Council didn't want to know the details of how peace was maintained. Now those human teams were gone, and the Kerr had spent the last 15 months unifying, rebuilding, and preparing for revenge. The Council fleet mobilized. 50 capital ships, 200 escorts, thousands of fighters. It should have been enough. The Council had held the frontier for millennia. The first engagement was a disaster. The Kerr tactics were unpredictable. They attacked from angles that made no sense. They retreated when they had advantages. They pressed forward when they should have fallen back. The Council fleet commanders, trained in traditional warfare, couldn't adapt. Why aren't our battle plans working? Admiral Cork shouted as another Council ship exploded on his display. We have superior numbers, better positions. His tactical officer, a young Quen, spoke quietly. Sir, these tactics are human style, unpredictable, aggressive. The Kerr must have studied human strategies. Nonsense. How could they? Court stopped. The answer was obvious. For decades, human forces had fought the Kerr in the shadows. The Kerr had learned from those encounters. And now they were using human tactics against a Council fleet that had forgotten how to fight without human advisors. The second wave of attacks came 3 days later. More worlds fell. Casualty reports climbed into the millions. Refugee streams clogged the hyperspace lanes. The Council's infrastructure, already weakened by humanity's departure, began to collapse under the strain. In the emergency session, representatives shouted over each other. Blame flew in every direction. The Thresk blamed the Velkrans for weak military leadership. The Morati blamed the Thresk for inadequate intelligence. The younger species blamed everyone for expelling humanity in the first place. Vex then raised his arms for silence. When the chamber finally quieted, his voice was heavy. We need help. From where? The Morati minister demanded. We are the Council. We are the strongest power in the galaxy. We were, corrected the Quen delegate. Before we expelled the people who actually knew how to fight. You want to crawl back to Earth? The Thresk representative's translator conveyed his disgust. Admit we were wrong? Beg them to return? I want to survive, the Quen said flatly. My homeworld is in the path of the next Kerr assault. In 3 days, my people might be dead. So yes, I want to ask Earth for help. My pride isn't worth millions of lives. The chamber erupted again. But as the argument raged, another report came through. 2 more colonies lost. The Kerr were advancing faster than projected. At this rate, they would reach core Council worlds within months. Finally, Vex then made his decision. I will go to Earth personally. I will request their assistance. You'll offer them what? The Thresk demanded. We expelled them. Why would they help us? Because humans are. Vex then paused, choosing his words carefully. Because despite everything, they tend to help when asked. It's one of their more frustrating qualities. 3 days later, a small Council ship entered Earth's solar system. They hadn't been sure they would be allowed to approach. For all they knew, humanity had written off the Council entirely. But the response from Earth traffic control was professional and prompt. They were given safe passage to Earth orbit. Vex then stood at the viewport, looking down at the blue world below. It looked so small, so fragile. Hard to believe this one planet had made such a difference. Elder Vex then. A communication officer interrupted his thoughts. We're being hailed by the Earth government. President SciFI will meet with you in Geneva. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Vex then spent the intervening hours being briefed by his aides and trying not to think about the casualty reports still streaming in from the front lines. When he finally entered the conference room in Geneva, he was surprised by what he saw. The human delegation wasn't large. President SciFI sat at the center, flanked by Ambassador Haiyan Wu and General Tae Yang. A few others lined the walls, but it was a modest group. SciFI stood as he entered. Elder Vexton. Thank you for coming. Please sit. The courtesy was unexpected. Vexton had been prepared for coldness, for anger, for demands. Instead, the human president offered him a seat and a beverage. I assume you know why I'm here, Vexton began. The Kerr attacks. Yes, we've been monitoring the situation. Then you know we're losing. Badly. It hurt to admit. We need your help. Shy One exchanged glances with her advisors. The council expelled us 15 months ago. Made it very clear we weren't welcome. Why would we risk human lives for a government that rejected us? Because people are dying. Millions of innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the council's decision. People died after you expelled us too, Haiyan Wu said quietly. That refugee ship that broke down. The plague victims on the Thresk homeworld. The miners killed when Xeris IV's economy collapsed. We sent condolences. We offered to help for appropriate fees. The council refused. We were trying to prove we didn't need you, Vex then admitted. We were wrong. I was wrong. The room fell silent. A Velcrin elder admitting error was almost unprecedented. Finally, Shy One spoke. What exactly are you asking for? Military assistance against the Kerr. We need your fleet. Your soldiers. Your tactical expertise. You want us to fight your war. I want us to fight our war. Together. Tae Yang leaned forward. And after the war? Assuming we win? What then? Do we go back to being expelled? Does the council vote us out again the next time we do something you don't like? No. Vex then straightened his crystalline form. If you help us, Earth will be welcomed back to the council with full honors. You'll have your seat restored? That's generous, Shy One said dryly. But we're not interested. Vex then felt something close to panic. Then what do you want? Not membership, partnership. Chi One activated a holographic display. Here are Earth's terms. As she outlined the proposal, Vex then felt his understanding of the political landscape shift. Earth didn't want to rejoin the council as a subordinate member. They wanted to be recognized as equals to the elder races. They wanted autonomous territory outside council space. They wanted trade agreements and technology sharing as reparations. They wanted permanent oversight positions with veto power. This is unprecedented, Vex then protested. You're asking to be treated as elder race equivalent after barely a century in space. We're asking to be treated as equals, as partners, not as subordinates who can be discarded when convenient. Chai One's voice was firm. Those are our terms. Take them or leave them. Another casualty report pinned on Vex Then's communicator. He didn't need to read it. He could imagine the numbers climbing. I need to consult with the council. Of course. But Elder Vex Then? Shy One's expression softened slightly. Every hour you delay, more people die. And Earth won't wait forever. Vex then returned to his ship and transmitted Earth's terms to Luminar Prime. The response came within hours. The council was divided. The elder races balked at giving so much power to such a young species. The younger races pointed out they were losing the war. Finally, with Kerr forces advancing on another populated world, the vote came through. The council agreed to Earth's terms. When Vex then delivered the news, Shy One nodded. Then we'll mobilize immediately. Commander Su Min will lead our fleet. General Taeyang will coordinate with your ground forces. Dr. Yunji will handle medical relief. Thank you. Don't thank us yet. We haven't won the war. Chai One stood, offering her hand in the human gesture of agreement. But we'll fight it together. As equals. Vex then grasped her hand, feeling the warmth of human skin against his crystalline palm. Strange, she thought, how much could change in 15 months. The humans had departed, and the council had regretted it immediately. Now they would learn whether they could build something better from the ashes. The first human fleet arrived in council space within a week. Commander Su Min stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as her battle group emerged from hyperspace. 50 ships. Not a massive force by council standards. But every vessel was crewed by veterans who knew how to fight. Ma'am, we're receiving telemetry from council forces. Her tactical officer studied the incoming data. The Kerr have taken up positions around the Helios system. 3 capital ships, dozens of escorts. Show me. The display lit up with enemy positions. Su Min studied them for a long moment and smiled. They're using human tactics. Unconventional positioning. Unpredictable deployments. But they're not humans. They don't understand why these tactics work. They're just copying what they saw. Can we use that? Absolutely. Set course for Helios. And patch me through to Admiral Court. The Velcron Admiral appeared on the view screen. He looked haggard, his crystalline form dimmed by exhaustion. Commander Su Min, thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting our terms. Now, let's win this war. She transmitted her battle plan. Your fleet will approach from the standard vectors. Make it look like a conventional assault. The Kerr will respond with human-style tactics because that's what's been working for them. And your fleet will come in from angles that make no sense. Because the thing about human tactics, they're not really about being unpredictable. They're about understanding why conventional tactics exist and choosing when to break those rules. The Kerr learned to copy us, but they never learned to think like us. The battle for Helios system began 12 hours later. The Council fleet advanced in textbook formations, exactly as Court had done in previous engagements. The Kerr responded with the aggressive, chaotic tactics that had been working so well. Then the human fleet hit them from behind that Su Min had brought her ships in through dead space, using sensor masking techniques the Council had always deemed too risky. She emerged inside the Kerr formation, where their capital ships were vulnerable. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 2 Kerr capital ships were destroyed, and the third was retreating. Council losses were minimal. How did you do that? Court asked after the engagement. We know how to break the rules because we know why the rules exist. The Kerr just learned to break rules randomly. Su Min allowed herself a tired smile. It's not the same thing. A victory at Helios was just the beginning. Over the following months, human forces turned the tide. Commander Su Min's tactical brilliance stopped the Kerr advance. General Taeyang's ground forces retook occupied worlds. And slowly, painfully, the Council began to push back. But the war wasn't just military. On the liberated worlds, Dr. Yoon-ji and her medical teams worked around the clock, treating wounded and sick. The Kerr had left biological weapons behind, diseases the Council had never seen. Human doctors, with their experience in adapting quickly to new threats, found cures. Why are you helping us? A Thresk patient asked Yoon-ji as she treated his wounds. We voted to expel you. You personally voted to expel us? Well, no. I'm just a farmer. But my government. Your government made a mistake. That doesn't mean you deserve to suffer. She finished bandaging his wounds. Besides, healing people is what I do. I'm not going to stop just because I'm angry. On Xeris 4, engineer Jing Ho supervised the reconstruction of the mining operation. The Thresk engineers watched in awe as he diagnosed and fixed problems they've been struggling with for months. How do you make it look so easy? One asked. Because I built it. I know every modification, every shortcut, every trick. He showed them the power distribution system. See? This bypass here reduces energy consumption by 30%. But if you don't know it's there and try to run standard Council specs, everything breaks. Will you teach us? Jin Ho paused. A year ago, he would have said no, would have been too angry. But now, seeing the genuine desire to learn, he found his anger fading. Yes, but on one condition. When I'm done here, you spread that knowledge. Share it with other species. Teach them what I teach you. He gestured at the equipment. This technology shouldn't be locked away because of politics. It should be used to help people. The Thresk engineer agreed enthusiastically. The war ground on for another 8 months. The Kerr, realizing they were losing, made one last desperate push toward the Council core worlds. The final battle took place near Luminar Prime itself. Both sides committed everything. The space around the great station filled with ships, weapons fire, and debris. For 6 hours, the outcome hung in balance. And Commander Su Min executed a maneuver that would be studied in military academies for generations. She withdrew the human fleet, making it look like a retreat. The Kerr, sensing victory, pressed forward, and Su Min led them straight into a trap where the Council fleet waited. The Kerr broke. Their surviving ships fled into deep space. The war was over. In the aftermath, Council space was forever changed. The reconstruction effort required cooperation between species on a scale never seen before. Humans worked alongside Thresk, Moradi, Quen, even Valkyrians. Old prejudices didn't disappear overnight, but they began to fade. 6 months after the war's end, Ambassador Haiyan Wu stood before the Council once more. This time, the chamber felt different. There was no hostility in the air. Instead, there was something that might have been respect. President Shai Wan spoke via hologram. Her image projected large above the Council floor. We gather today to formalize the new relationship between Earth and the Galactic Council. The terms have been agreed upon. Humanity will not rejoin the Council as a member species. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Instead, Earth will be recognized as an independent sovereign power, equal in status to the Council itself. We will maintain our autonomous territory. We will engage in free trade with all Council species. And we will cooperate on matters of mutual interest, including defense, scientific research, and humanitarian aid. Vex then rose from his seat. The Council accepts these terms. Moreover, we propose the creation of a new governing body, the Alliance Council, a union of equals where no species holds dominance over another, where decisions are made through consensus rather than decree. We accept, Shai Wan said, and we propose that the Alliance Council include not just current members, but any species that wishes to join and can meet basic standards of conduct. Let this be a union that grows through cooperation, not conquest. The vote was unanimous. After the session, Haiyan Wu found Vexthan in one of Luminar Prime's observation decks. The Velkrin Elder stood looking out at the stars, his crystalline form reflecting the light of 1,000 distant suns. 15 months ago, you expelled us, Haiyan Wu said quietly. 15 months ago, I made the worst mistake of my very long life. Why did you do it? Vexthan was silent for a moment. Fear. Your people were changing things, moving too fast, questioning traditions that had stood for millennia. The elder races felt control slipping away. And now? Now I understand that change isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. He turned to face Haiyan Wu. Your species taught us that. You left when we forced you out. You could have abandoned us when we asked for help. Instead, you came back. You fought for us. You helped us build something better. We didn't do it for you, Haiyan Wu admitted. We did it because it was right. Because people were dying. Because that's what you do when you have the power to help. I know. That's what makes it remarkable. Vexthan extended his hand in the human gesture. Thank you. For everything? Haiyan Wu grasped his hand. We're not done yet. Building this new alliance will take decades. Maybe centuries. There will be arguments, setbacks, mistakes. But we'll face them together. As equals. As equals, Haiyan Wu agreed. Outside the viewport, ships moved through space. Human vessels alongside council ships. Working together, building together, growing together. The galaxy had changed. The old order had fallen, and something new was rising from its ashes. The humans had departed, and the council had regretted it immediately. They had fought a war together. They had learned from each other. And now they were building something that neither could have created alone. In the observation deck, two representatives of two very different species stood side by side, looking out at the stars. There was still work to do. There were still problems to solve. But for the first time in a long time, both of them felt something like hope. The future would be different. It would be challenging. But it would be built together by species who had learned the hard way that cooperation was stronger than dominance, that diversity was more valuable than conformity, and that sometimes the youngest voices had the most important things to say. The humans had departed. The council had regretted it. And from that regret, something better had been born.